The entire restaurant went silent when the doors opened. Conversations stopped in the middle of sentences, forks paused above expensive plates, and even the pianist seemed to miss a note. Every eye turned toward the man walking through the entrance in a perfectly tailored midnight blue tuxedo. He carried himself with quiet confidence, his shoulders straight, his expression calm, and every step seemed to say that he belonged there. But the woman sitting at the most expensive table in the room nearly dropped her glass when she realized who he was. Just hours earlier, she had laughed when she invited her black driver to dinner, never imagining he would actually accept. She had expected him to understand that it was a joke. Instead, he had walked into her world looking completely unrecognizable. If you believe that kindness can change a person's life, that people deserve second chances, and that we should never judge someone by their clothes, job, or social position, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Victoria Hale was 38 years old and the CEO of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the city. She lived in a glass-walled penthouse, attended charity galas, and had grown accustomed to people treating her differently because of her wealth. Her schedule was controlled down to the minute, and even her dinners were usually business meetings disguised as social events. She had everything money could buy, yet she rarely allowed anyone close enough to see the loneliness behind her success. Then there was Marcus Reed, her private driver. Marcus was 34, polite, incredibly patient, and almost invisible in the world Victoria lived in. He opened doors, carried luggage, waited outside meetings, and drove her through traffic without ever complaining. He never asked personal questions, never demanded attention, and always treated Victoria with the same quiet respect whether she was wearing a $1,000 designer dress or sitting exhausted in the back seat after a 16-hour workday. Victoria knew very little about him. She knew he had a daughter named Lily, that he lived in a modest neighborhood across town, and that he had once studied business administration before life forced him to leave college. What she did not know was that Marcus had been an exceptional student. He had earned a scholarship to one of the city's best universities, but during his final year his mother became seriously ill, and Marcus left school to care for her. After she passed away, he found himself raising Lily alone. Bills accumulated, opportunities disappeared, and eventually the man who once dreamed of building companies found himself driving someone else's car for a living. Still, Marcus never allowed disappointment to turn him bitter. One Friday evening, Victoria was preparing for an exclusive dinner with investors at the most prestigious restaurant in the city. She was frustrated because the evening was supposed to impress several powerful people, but her usual social circle had become predictable. During the drive, she jokingly turned toward Marcus and said that perhaps he should join her for dinner. She laughed immediately afterward, making it obvious that she wasn't serious. Marcus simply smiled and told her that he would be honored if the invitation was genuine. Victoria laughed again and told him to come if he wanted, assuming he would understand that he didn't belong at a table filled with billionaires and executives. Marcus said nothing more. That night, however, something unexpected happened. When Victoria arrived at the restaurant, she noticed that Marcus did not immediately leave. She assumed he had gone home. She sat with her investors, ordered champagne, and began discussing a major expansion deal. But every few minutes, she found herself glancing toward the entrance, wondering whether Marcus had actually taken her ridiculous invitation seriously. Then the doors opened. Marcus walked inside. But this wasn't the Marcus she knew. He wasn't wearing the simple black driver uniform Victoria had seen every day. He wore a custom midnight blue tuxedo, polished black shoes, a silver watch, and a subtle cufflink bearing the initials Mr. His hair was perfectly styled, his posture confident, and his face carried an expression Victoria had never seen before. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply looked like a man who had finally stepped into a room he had always deserved to enter. Victoria stared at him in disbelief. Her investors began whispering. One of them asked who the man was. Victoria couldn't answer immediately because she suddenly realized something she had never considered. Marcus had never looked small. She had simply been looking at him through the wrong lens. Marcus approached the table and greeted everyone politely. Then he handed Victoria a small envelope. Inside was an invitation to an upcoming business conference hosted by a private investment group. The name on the invitation stopped Victoria's heart for a moment. Marcus Reed was not merely a former business student. He was the founder of Reed Community Ventures, a small investment organization that had quietly funded businesses in struggling neighborhoods for years. Victoria had heard of the organization. She had even admired its work. She had never imagined the founder was the man sitting behind her steering wheel. Marcus explained that he had kept his business private because he needed stable work while rebuilding his life. Driving for Victoria had given him flexibility to take care of Lily while he rebuilt his company at night. He hadn't told Victoria because he didn't want special treatment. He wanted to be judged by his work, not by what he owned. The room became painfully quiet. Victoria felt a wave of shame. She remembered every time she had spoken casually about people who served wealthy clients. She remembered laughing about the dinner invitation. Most painfully, she remembered how easily she had assumed Marcus would understand that he was being invited as a joke. She stood and apologized to him in front of everyone. Marcus accepted her apology, but his response was gentle. He told her that the evening had taught him something too. Sometimes people don't invite you because they believe you belong. Sometimes they invite you because they want to remind themselves that you don't. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she stopped thinking about how the evening looked to everyone else. She thought about how it must have felt for Marcus to spend years being underestimated while quietly rebuilding his life. Then Victoria did something no one expected. She asked Marcus to join the company as a strategic partner. Marcus smiled and declined the position, but offered something better. He suggested that Victoria and her company work with his organization to create scholarships for young people who had been forced to abandon their education because of financial hardship. Victoria agreed immediately. Months later, the first scholarship was awarded to a young woman whose story reminded Marcus of his own. She had been ready to quit college to support her family. Instead, she received enough help to finish her degree. Marcus stood in the audience beside Lily, watching the young woman receive her certificate. Victoria stood nearby, wiping tears from her eyes. The joke that had begun with an invitation had become something neither of them could have imagined. It had exposed pride, revealed hidden strength, and created a friendship built not on money or status, but on respect. And Victoria never forgot the lesson Marcus taught her without ever raising his voice. Sometimes the person you overlook is carrying a story powerful enough to change your entire life. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so we can continue bringing you stories about kindness, dignity, second chances, and unexpected miracles. Before we end,